killed, hundreds injured in South Africa train collision. Madagascar court confirms Rajoelina's win as president. And Egypt to host 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live from Nairobi. I am Peninah Karibe. Also in studio with the day's business highlights is Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Libya plans to take advantage of improved security in order to boost its oil output. And South Africa's net currency reserves rise to over $43 billion by the end of 2018. We'll be looking at those numbers and, of course, going through a bunch of other stories as well in the course of the hour. But first, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. Let's begin in South Africa, where emergency and medical personnel have been working round the clock to free passengers trapped under two trains that collided on Tuesday morning. At least 3 people were killed and dozens others injured. The trains crashed in the capital, Pretoria. They are said to have been traveling in the same direction and on the same track when the incident happened. Emergency services remained on site, giving medical attention as well as trying to free those who were trapped. The cause of the crash is still unknown. For an update on this, we're joined by CGTN's Angelo Copeland live for us in Johannesburg. Angelo, what do we know so far about the passengers who were trapped under the trains?
Peninah, it's not good news, unfortunately. People that were trapped under those two trains had been there for several hours. Emergency workers had worked feverishly to try and free them. Unfortunately, at around 3:30 this afternoon, the last of the 2 bodies were removed, and 1 other person had died of their injuries in hospital. So we have a confirmed death toll of 3 people right now. As it stands, also, we understand that some 640 people had been injured because of the train crash. Of those 640, we understand that 11 people have sustained serious injuries and some 61 others had moderate injuries. But emergency services are saying that the death toll could rise. So it's a sad day for South Africans as they mourn the loss of these 3 people who passed away today. Peninah.
And Angela, the frequency of train accidents in South Africa is raising safety concerns. What caused this particular incident?
Well, look, the Rail Safety Authority and Metro Rail, who own the trains, have instituted an investigation into the cause of the accident. That happened within hours of it. Now that the body's been removed, the investigators are on site and they've started the investigation. According to Lillian Mofokeng, who's the Metro Rail spokesperson, when she spoke this morning, she said both, as you said, both trains were travelling in the same direction, and more surprisingly, they were on the same track when the collision happened at the Mountain View station that's on the western side of Pretoria. Initial estimates put the cost for the repair to the line and to the rolling stock at around $1.5 million. So it's quite substantial. We do understand that the area has been battling with cable theft and vandalism for some time now, but it's unclear if cable theft had anything to do with this accident at this early stage of the investigation. We also understand that the line will be closed for between 2 and possibly 3 days as investigators complete their investigations. Peninah.
All right, Angelo, thank you for that update. Angelo Copeland in Johannesburg for us. In the meantime, South Africa's ruling party's President Cyril Ramaphosa says the governing party is determined more than ever to implement the policy of land expropriation without compensation. Ramaphosa was delivering the party's January 8th statement in the coastal city of Durban, plotting the way forward for the ANC. CGTN's Olisa Njamela has more.
January 8 is the date that marks the ANC's birthday. The party is turning 107 years this year. ANC supporters from across the country gathered here to mark the occasion and hear the annual January 8 statement. This is a key event in South Africa's political calendar. The annual gathering also serves as a rallying call for ANC supporters to participate in the party's programs for the year. These celebrations come amid ongoing infighting within the former liberation movement. There's also been widespread speculation that ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa is at loggerheads with former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma was asked by his party to resign early last year before he could finish his term. Ramaphosa dedicated the opening of his January 8 address to reassure ANC supporters of his good relationship with the former president.
Many people are saying I'm going to meet with the former president to scold him. I don't know where that comes from. I want to reassure you that Zuma and I are united and work together.
Zuma accompanied Ramaphosa to this rally in an area known to be his stronghold. Ramaphosa then highlighted the party's achievements over the past 25 years since ANC came to power, and acknowledged that over the past few years, the party has been dealing with infighting, factionalism, and disunity.
We've heard the voices of South African people from all walks of life who have spoken to us and who have said that they want a strong ANC, they want a united ANC, and they want an ANC which is going to demonstrate to the whole nation that it has leaders who are working together. And we accept those criticisms, and we have heard our people.
The president noted that the one unifying issue within the party is the matter of land redistribution. South African lawmakers have agreed to the principle of land expropriation without compensation and will review the constitution to cater for this.
With that policy, a policy which we are going to implement, others are criticizing us. They're saying we won't actually implement the policy. We are going to implement that policy, whether people like it or not. The land will return to our people.
Ramaphosa also highlighted that the party is now seized with the matter of growing the economy. South Africans will head to the polls later this year to elect their representatives in national and provincial government in the country's 6th democratic elections. The ANC has started to intensify its electioneering as it launches its manifesto on Saturday. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Durban, South Africa.
Madagascar's High Constitutional Court has confirmed that former President Andry Rajoelina won the presidential election. The court rejected all complaints filed over the results, saying Rajoelina won with more than 55%. Close contender Marc Ravalomanana received more than 44%. Ravalomanana had denounced the runoff results, alleging massive fraud on election day and during vote counting. He filed more than 200 petitions and complaints with the court. To some sports news now. Egypt have won the right to host the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in June and July. The decision was arrived at during a Confederation of African Football Executive Committee meeting in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. The North Africans won the vote with an overwhelming 16-1 count with one abstention. They will stage the expanded 24-team event. Initial hosts Cameroon was stripped of the tournament last month over concerns at the slow pace of preparations. The North African nation will host the competition for the 5th time and the first since 2006. The Egyptian Football Association has welcomed the news.
I feel very happy, and I promise that Egypt will do the best to make a very good event next June and July. We have a short period, but Egypt is ready for such event. We did 5 times before, and also we did 2 World Cup for teenagers, and I promise that all the African nations will be very comfortable and will be very happy in our country, and it's good to thank you all the African nations which vote for Egypt.
All right, let's get more from CGTN Sadiq Shaban. He's live for us in Dakar. So Sadiq, 16-1, that's really a huge margin. What are you learning about the intrigues that were at play?
Peninah, over the last few minutes, we have learned that that single vote from South Africa was actually a vote by the head of South African Football Association, Danny Hodan, and the other abstention was from the president of the AFCON organizing committee, Amaju Pinnick, who is also the president of Nigerian Football Federation. So this was a resounding defeat for South Africa and a landslide victory for Egypt, getting the 5th African Cup of Nations hosting rights.
So must the new hosts do now in preparation for the expanded finals with only 5 months left?
The Egyptians have been speaking to us, Peninah, in the last 2 hours since this announcement was made, and they are saying they are going to host this tournament in about 5 cities of 8 stadiums across Egypt. They say they are ready. They have actually been ready. All they need to do is now to get the final government approvals in terms of visas and other arrangements. They're saying the stadium is there, accommodation facilities are there. All they're waiting for, in fact, they are saying, is the last qualifiers in March to know who the remaining contenders for the title are.
And Sadiq, focus now shifts to the awards gala. How are preparations for that coming along?
Peninah, the preparations are complete. In fact, in just about 45 minutes from now, the best of African footballers, both men and women, will be crowned. We know in the men's category we have the same group as last year, Aubameyang, Sadio Mane, and of course the winning holder of the title, Mohamed Salah. And many people say this could be an Egyptian night, could be a double, because there's no one who comes really close to Mohamed Salah's achievement during this period, and he looks set to winning the second African Player of the Year award. Odega, Asheola, and South African contender Christine will be going for the gong in the women's in the women's award, and it appears as if we may have a different winner this time. A lot of people here saying, and experts say, the South African calendar has had a fantastic year both in club and country. Finished as a top scorer for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Ghana last year. So the young lady from South Africa looks set to earning perhaps our biggest prize in football yet.
All right, Sadiq, thank you very much for that. Sadiq Shaban live for us there in Dakar. And we're going to have more on that, including reactions from Egypt and South Africa in our sports segment coming up in this bulletin. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead. AU Commission Chief condemns failed coup attempt in Gabon. And pressure mounts on DR Congo over election outcome.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
We've come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
My home country lies at the foot of Africa, the southernmost tip of our beautiful continent, and the unique point at which 2 great oceans meet. Now on a clear day in Cape Town, you can just make out Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela was jailed for so long. South Africa has changed so much in the years since then, but it is this country's history that shaped me and took me into reporting. I'm inspired by Africa's men and women of courage. It's the everyday hero who brings out my passion. The creatives, the decision makers, the risk takers who are shaping a bright African future. I see them in Cape Town. I see them in the pulsating city of Johannesburg. I see them across the continent, and I know our time has come.
CGTN is a platform where African voices can speak for themselves and take their stories to the world. My name is Lindy Mtongana, and I'm a news anchor and reporter for CGTN.
We now head to Gabon, and the chair of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, has condemned the failed coup attempt that happened on Monday in the country. In a tweet posted on Tuesday morning, Mahamat said the African body does not support unconstitutional change of power. Meanwhile, investigations have been launched into the incident. Security forces killed 2 of the ringleaders. Government spokesperson Guy Bertrand Mapangu says 7 of the plotters were arrested after they seized control of the national radio station early on Monday morning. CGTN's Twili Shabalala has more.
A group of soldiers called for a popular uprising while the country's ailing president was abroad. The soldiers burst into state radio offices at dawn and urged the public to rise up.
As soon as the government was informed of the situation, measures were put into place quickly and efficiently to neutralize and arrest members of the political group. During this operation, 2 insurgents died. The others, including Lieutenant Ondo Obiang-Kelly, were presented to the Prosecutor General and arrested.
Shots were heard around the state broadcasting headquarters in the capital, Libreville. In a rundown district nearby, dozens of young people torched a car and set fire to tires. Security forces fired tear gas to try disperse them.
Also, the government wants to reassure the Gabonese people, foreign communities living on national territory, economic players, diplomatic missions and the Friends of Gabon that calm and serenity reign on the entire national territory.
Security forces have been deployed in the capital and will remain there over the coming days to maintain order. President Ali Bongo remains in Morocco after suffering a stroke last year. He was previously receiving treatment in Saudi Arabia.
Representatives of opposition presidential candidate Felix Tshisekedi say they have met with outgoing President Joseph Kabila's camp to ensure a peaceful transfer of power. Kabila's camp has, however, denied that any such meetings had occurred since the December 30th election. The election is meant to bring about Congo's first democratic transition in 59 years of independence, but tensions are rising as some in the opposition accuse the government of trying to rig the vote. It's been more than a week after the crucial poll was held. The Electoral Commission has not set a date for the official announcement of the results. The United Nations Security Council has put off a planned session on the Democratic Republic of Congo and is closely watching the developments in the country. Let's now cross over to Kinshasa, where CGTN's Chris Ochamringa is on the line for us. So, Chris, pressure is mounting on the DRC over the election outcome. Can you give us an update on what is happening there?
Well, like you said, there's a lot of pressure. Many people are very, very anxious to hear the results from the Electoral Commission. On Sunday, the head of the Electoral Commission said they had only covered 53% of the votes and urged the public to remain calm. Now, this afternoon, I was in downtown Kinshasa, a place called Zando, where there are thousands of people who are doing business. There are Indians and Chinese and the locals. And there was a rumor that was spread that the Electoral Commission was going to announce the results today, and people were fearing that there was going to be an outbreak of violence. There were helicopters seen hovering above the skies, and most of the shop attendants closed their shops and ran away, and people were just fleeing, going back home, fearing that there was going to be an outbreak of violence. I called the Electoral Commission and they say that was a rumor. It's not true. The Electoral Commission will announce when they are done with the vote counting. So that's the situation. People are very afraid of what the future holds because of this election.
All right, Chris, thank you for that update. Chris Ochamringa on the line from Kinshasa. A truth commission in the tiny West African state of the Gambia has begun hearing witness testimonies. Known as the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, the body is set to investigate rights violations committed by the 22-year regime of Yahya Jammeh. The body is empowered to advise prosecution of perpetrators and recommend financial compensation to victims. President Adama Barrow has hailed the commission as a step towards national healing and a way to prosecute those responsible and offer some closure to victims and families. In Sudan, the first pro-Bashir rally since unrest rocked the country from earlier last month was held in the eastern city of Kassala. Hundreds of people turned up to show support for the incumbent, with others taking it to social media platforms. The wave of protests against Bashir's administration had been sparked by the rising cost of living. Interior Minister Ahmed Bilal Osman has said that over 800 people have been arrested.
The total number of incidents that the states witnessed reached 381, and the total number of protesters arrested until now is 816. Police records have filed 322 reports. The total number of facilities affected reached 188, including government, health, parties, educational and services buildings. Among those are 14 police facilities, in addition to the infringement of several commercial shops. The efforts of the police and security forces are focused on stopping the violence of outlaws, thus limiting these unfortunate events and bringing peace back to the states. Small incidents are being countered immediately before they can develop and be used for other purposes.
On to Somalia, where regional lawmakers have picked a new president in Puntland, which is a semi-autonomous state in northern Somalia. The region is already battling two militant groups, and as Abdulaziz Billy reports, the new leader has a huge task ahead.
Its fifth election to take place in Puntland since it was formed 2 decades ago. The elections attracted 21 candidates, including the incumbent Abdiweli Mohammed Ali. 66 lawmakers from the regional parliament, among them one female legislator, casted their votes in Garowe, the administrative capital of Puntland, amid heightened security.
The results are as follows. General Assad Osman Abdullahi, 31 votes. Said Abdullahi Dabi, 35 votes. I hereby declare Said Abdullahi Dabi as the new Puntland president for a period of 5 years, from January 2019 to January 2024.
Mohammed won in the third round, defeating Assad Osman Abdullahi, who served as the intelligence chief for the autonomous region. The incumbent was eliminated in the first round.
We are united as Puntland, and we will remain united. Nothing can break us.
Before his election, Mohammed served as a planning minister in the central government. An economist by profession, analysts believe he will address the region's immense challenges.
We have entered a new page today, one that needs public support in rebuilding Puntland and Somalia. The election is officially over. I thank all those who competed against me, and it is my hope that we will work together.
Puntland has a population of close to 3 million people with improved infrastructure and several transit hubs, including a key port and 3 major airports. Its mountainous terrain has also been a safe haven for extremist militants. Al-Shabaab and pro-ISIL for years maintain a huge presence in Puntland, launching deadly raids on regional forces and targeted assassinations, mostly in the port city of Bosaso. US drones have helped push back the militants, who have in turn resorted to taxing major companies as a lifeline to sustain their operations. Mohammed will now serve a 5-year term as the region's president. His predecessor suspended ties with Mogadishu, accusing it of undermining regional authorities. For now, it's unclear if the new leader will change course and work alongside the federal government or follow in the footsteps of his predecessor. Abdulaziz Bilal, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
To Zimbabwe, where it is business as usual on the first day of school this year. This despite earlier threats of a teacher strike. Unions representing public school teachers had asked their members to stay away from work to press for higher pay.
Teachers were present at the schools that we visited in the capital today. I spoke to the president of the largest teachers union, the Zimbabwe Teachers Association, who said that while teachers may have reported for duty, they are unlikely to be doing anything meaningful because of the hardships they are facing. Teachers want their salaries paid in US dollars or in local currency at the prevailing parallel market rate. Bond notes are officially valued at par with the greenback, but are worth less than a third of that based on the black market rate of 3.5 to 1 US dollar. That disparity, teachers say, has eroded their purchasing power and made it unaffordable to report for duty. A meeting between government and unions on Monday failed to reach an agreement on the sticky issues. Teachers are the latest public servants to demand payment in hard currency. Junior doctors have been on strike for more than a month over the same issue and an improvement in working conditions.
There is growing discontent in Zimbabwe due to a long-running currency crisis which has pushed inflation up to a 10-year high and caused shortages of banknotes, fuel and some basic commodities. President Emmerson Mnangagwa's administration says it doesn't have the capacity to pay salaries in hard currency. It's asked for more time to address the economic crisis through a raft of austerity measures, including reducing government spending, limiting borrowing and discouraging non-essential imports. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare.
The Chinese business community in Zimbabwe has given a donation to the less privileged members of the society. This is part of efforts to enhance trade and investment relations with the Southern African nation.
In the spirit of solidarity, the Chinese business community in Zimbabwe has made donations to the less privileged in the society.
What we are seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is an expression of love. It is also an expression of compassion. That love comes all the way from the loving moms of China, all the way from everybody who's a caregiver here to care for these children.
Founded in 2014, the Love in Africa organization provides food, shelter and clothing to the less privileged in the society. The organization has built an orphanage sheltering 40 children. This year, about 700 children from 10 homes are set to benefit from the donation.
The Chinese community is not just working here, they also try to pay back to the society. And they have done an excellent job. Quite recently, the Chinese community has always been serving as a bridge between China and Zimbabwe to promote the cooperation, economic cooperation, the cooperation in almost every field. They have done an excellent job.
China has become Zimbabwe's biggest foreign investor, sponsoring the majority of the country's development projects. Bulletin, CGTN.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's have a look at our top stories this hour. Emergency and medical personnel in South Africa have been working round the clock to free passengers trapped under two trains that collided on Tuesday morning. At least 3 people were killed and dozens others injured. The trains crashed in the capital, Pretoria. They say to have been traveling in the same direction and on the same track when the incident happened. Madagascar's High Constitutional Court has confirmed that former President Andry Rajoelina won the presidential election. The court rejected all complaints filed over the results, saying Rajoelina won with more than 55%. Close contender Mark Ravalomanana received more than 44%. Ravalomanana had denounced the run of results, alleging massive fraud on election day and during vote counting. Egypt have won the right to host the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in June and July. The decision was arrived at during a Confederation of African Football Executive Committee meeting in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. The North Africans won the vote with an overwhelming 16-1 count with one abstention. They will stage the expanded 24-team event. Initial hosts Cameroon was stripped of the tournament last month over concerns at the slow pace of preparation. And representatives of opposition presidential candidate Felix Tshisekedi say they have met with outgoing President Joseph Kabila's camp to ensure a peaceful transfer of power. Kabila's camp has, however, denied that any such meetings had occurred since the December 30th election. Tensions are rising in the country as some in the opposition accuse the government of trying to rig the vote. Results are yet to be announced more than a week after vote counting started. And that's a wrap of our top stories. It's time now for the business news with Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in business. Libya plans to take advantage of improved security to increase its oil output significantly. And South Africa's currency reserves rise to over $43 billion in December.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head out now.
Beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible and why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sunitra. Hello, Naro.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
Let's start in North Africa. Libya aims to more than double its oil output to 2.1 million barrels of crude a day by 2021. Now, the war-torn state currently produces roughly 950,000 barrels of crude a day, compared to its pre-war capacity of about 1.6 or so million barrels of crude a day. The chair of Libya's state-owned oil firm, the National Oil Corporation, however, says that this can only be achieved if security is improved in the country's oil fields. At the moment, though, even with the current security situation, Libya is one of Africa's top 5 oil exporters.
إنتاجنا اليوم 953 ألف برميل تحديدا.
The numbers we are talking about are 2.1 million barrels of oil and around 3.5 billion cubic feet of gas, and they are ambitious figures. We have other plans of developing, the refining and improving the production sectors. There is a lot going on, but all we need is some stability. Our production today is 953,000 barrels to be specific. Our production before the events of the Sharara field was 1.3 million barrels. The average production figure for 2018 was 1.107 million barrels. Those are excellent figures.
Elsewhere, South Africa's foreign currency reserves have gone up to $43.091 billion by the end of December. That's up from $42.577 billion recorded a month earlier in the same year. Now, the country's gross reserves jumped to $51.6 billion from $50.6 billion over the same period. Now, the forward position, which basically represents the central bank's unsettled transactions, was shrunk down to about $145 million. South Africa's overall economic freedom, however, improved by 0.7% last year. The country is expected to grow by at least 1.5% in 2019. Egypt hasn't had the exact same luck as far as its foreign currency reserves are concerned, though. They fell to $42.5 billion in December, down from about $44.5 billion the previous month. This is the first such decline since the country's 2016 devaluation of the Egyptian pound. Egypt did that as part of a 3-year deal signed with the International Monetary Fund, which included a $12 billion loan and, of course, the floating of the currency in November of 2016. The deal was part of an effort to attract foreign investors who fled the country after the 2011 uprising. The North African state has been pursuing some pretty tough economic reforms as part of the IMF program. Bit of commodity news now. Konkola Copper Mines in Zambia, it's a subsidiary of Vedanta Resources, has suspended operations at its Nchanga mine. Now, this comes in the wake of the introduction of import duties that took effect on the 1st of January on copper concentrates in the southwest African state. Zambia is Africa's second largest copper producer. It introduced new mining duties and a plan to replace the value-added tax with a general sales tax in the nation by April. Now, the new duties are expected by the authorities to help bring down the nation's mounting public debt levels. In September, Zambia included in its annual budget a plan to increase mineral royalty rates by 1.5% or 150 basis points more accurately from the beginning of 2019. Now, the budget also featured a fourth-tier rate of 10% if copper prices go up above $7,500 a ton. South Africa recently passed the Property Practitioners Bill. While the move satisfied some stakeholders, there was also speculation from major players in the sector who say that this new bill defeats its intended purpose. Andry Rajoelina explains why.
South Africa's government has embarked on a much contested land reform journey. Before the Property Practitioners Bill was passed into law, there had been growing anger against the government's perceived slow pace to institute change. Many previously disadvantaged property practitioners hope the bill will open up equal opportunity rights for both black and white property owners.
From 2016, the department has been looking at ways of transforming this legislation that regulates this board, because the legislation was passed in 1976. Now you will realize when you talk 1976, you're speaking pre-1994. That means we're talking of a legislation that was not transformed, a legislation that was passed during the time of apartheid.
The bill is seen by some in the property sector as an incredibly important potential act that will help secure justice and protection for all.
I think the first point is that the benchmarking of all your practitioners and then bringing everybody into a professional environment and moving the industry from, just anyone can become an estate agent, anyone can sell houses or do mortgage origination, to elevate that to a point where you actually needed a qualification to enter the industry. I think that was one of the primary factors.
Some, however, like the real estate business owners of South Africa, said the bill may be something of a quick fix rather than a solid road to transformation. Still, previously disadvantaged black people in South Africa believe this bill addresses all major areas of concern that they had been trying to bring to the government's attention for a long time. A good example is up until recently, black real estate agents were not allowed to operate in white-owned areas. They could only list properties in townships like Kailita and Soweto.
You will remember, just to go back a bit, the property industry in South Africa is one of the richest. We're talking about an industry that is worth about 6 trillion rands. Now, in these 6 trillion rands that we talk about, you have about 4,000 estate agents, plus minus. But from these 4,000, there's only about 800 blacks that are estate agents. So you have a situation where in a 6 trillion industry, only 5% of black people participate. And that's one of the big things that forced us to actually find ways of transforming this industry.
Despite those in the committee admitting there were loopholes that could be detrimental to the future of South Africa, many believe that President Cyril Ramaphosa will sign the bill into an act. Andry Rajoelina for CGTN.
All right, then one last story for you. MTN share price has gone up by just about 2.8%. Now, the company's executives may have expected investors to essentially cheer the news after they got potential liabilities of over $8 billion, reduced to just $53 million in December. But ever since its settlement was announced in late December, the wireless carrier is still about 20% below the prices recorded in August when these allegations first emerged. MTN faced allegations at the time of illegally moving the funds, the $8 billion, out of Nigeria, which is its single biggest market. MTN has about 66 million clients in that country. I'll leave it there for the time being. Here's what's coming up, though, at the top of the hour. We'll be focusing on South African Airways. The carrier has finally secured a loan of about $280 million to keep it flying, but only until March. What happens then? Find out at the top of the hour. See you at 1800 GMT. For now, though, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to inaugurate a new mosque in Egypt.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's now head to Egypt, where President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has invited Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to inaugurate the first mosque in the new administrative capital. As Adel Mahroui reports, the mosque can hold more than 17,000 worshippers and is one of the largest mosques in the world.
In the middle of the Egyptian Eastern Desert stands a new colossal construction. Al-Fattah al-Alim Mosque has been inspired by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's name and will be the landmark of the new Egyptian administrative capital.
Where the urban extension of New Cairo ends, a new Egyptian dream begins. It appears to be nowhere. This landscape, however, is planned to be the new capital of Egypt. And this grand mosque, Al-Fattah al-Alim, stands at the entrance of this administrative city to be. This month, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has hosted a grand ceremony for its inauguration.
The mosque has been designed on the Egyptian Islamic architecture style. It has 4 minarets, each topped with a brass crescent, and stands at a height of 95 meters. It has 21 domes, 4 main ones at each corner, each with a diameter of nearly 12 meters and a height of 29 meters.
Its central dome is the most iconic feature. 33 meters in diameter and 44 meters high, it's one of the biggest in the Middle East. Established on 106 acres of land, Al-Fattah al-Alim has been built to stand out, to emphasize on the importance of national unity among religious sects and to maintain social harmony. El-Sisi made the Coptic Egyptian Pope the first to speak in the mosque.
This is a day of joy. We witness our beloved Egypt marking a historic moment in its civilization. We reach the skies with the obelisks in ancient time and then minarets in the Christian and Islamic eras. This is an unprecedented occasion in history. The minarets of Al-Fattah al-Alim Mosque align with those of the birth of the Christian cathedral. Together, these new establishments mark a new feature in Egypt's new administrative capital.
Al-Fattah al-Alim can accommodate more than 17,000 worshippers. 30,000 engineers and workers have constructed this grand establishment in less than 2 years. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
In Tunisia, authorities have announced that a cold weather plan has been put in place to face extreme conditions in 5 regions near the border with Algeria. The government aims to improve the living conditions of thousands of people who suffer from poor housing and underdeveloped infrastructure during the long and cold winter season.
According to the National Institute of Meteorology, this winter is one of the coldest in Tunisian history. Snowstorms hit the northwestern regions of El Kef, Jandouba, and other governorates bordering Algeria.
The weather is extremely cold. It's unusual. The civil society must help the poor and the needy to face the extreme weather conditions.
Providing social assistance and equipping houses in border regions is the state's responsibility.
The country's premier announced during a visit to the village of Mashrawa in Ain Draham that a cold weather plan will be implemented in the next few days in the governorates of Jandouba, Gasrin, El Kef, and Siliana. Authorities will also equip the houses of low-income households.
Housing improvements for 1,000 needy families are at the heart of this multifaceted program. The program of regional social solidarity committees will also be beefed up with heating equipment and other facilities to cope with the cold spell.
The multi-component program announced by the Premier also includes the setting up of solar energy production units that will benefit nearly 10,000 houses of low-income households. The project is financed by the Energy Transfer Fund. The infrastructure will also be improved in mountainous regions.
Solar energy will improve people's living conditions. In addition, 37 rural tracks of 240 kilometers will likewise be developed in 5 governorates with a total investment of about $27 million earmarked by the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development.
Regional authorities said the projects providing for drinking water supply and the development of rural tracks will be completed within months. The national program to address basic housing aims to replace rudimentary dwellings in the villages bordering Algerian cities. The state will also provide social assistance to thousands of people in the regions which were hit by the spell of cold and snow. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Coming up in sports. Reactions from Egypt after CAF awards 2019 AFCON to the North African country.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
And like we reported earlier, Egypt have won the right to host the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in June and July. The decision was arrived at during a Confederation of African Football Executive Committee meeting in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. The North Africans won the vote with an overwhelming 16-1 count with 1 abstention. They will stage the expanded 24-team event. Initial hosts Cameroon was stripped of the tournament last month over concerns at the slow pace of preparations. The North African nation will host the competition for the 5th time and the first since 2006. The Egyptian Football Association has welcomed the news.
I'm really very happy, and I promise that Egypt will do the best to make a very good event next June and July. We have a short period, but Egypt is ready for such event. We did 5 times before, and also we did 2 World Cup for teenagers, and I promise that all the African nations will be very comfortable and will be very happy in our country, and it's good to thank you all the African nations which vote for Egypt.
Egyptians have reacted with excitement to the news that the country will host this year's edition of the Africa Cup of Nations following a vote held earlier today in Senegal. CGTN's Adel Makroui has more from Cairo.
The African Cup of Nations will be back to Egypt this summer after 12 years of absence. With it, the thunder of fans cheering will finally return to stadiums after years of a fans ban. Football lovers here are thrilled.
It is great to have the competition here. I have been eager for so long to see the gates of the stadiums open. I'll attend as many matches as I can.
I think it was clear Egypt will win it. Hopefully, it will revive tourism after so many fans would come to witness themselves how wonderful our country is.
It's going to be the 5th African Cup of Nations Egypt hosts, and the first since Egypt held major renovations for its football infrastructure.
We hoped Egypt would host the African Cup of Nations. The Football Association, the Sports Ministry and the entire country have exerted immense effort to respond to the desires of Egyptians who love football.
The Egyptian Football Association is extremely proud that CAF's executive committee gave it a sweeping 16-1 vote.
We are not only happy to host the competition, but the voting results show how much CAF trusts the EFA's president, Hani Aboreda, and Egypt. We are honored and will do our best to present the competition in its best shape.
Egypt will be remembered in CAF's football history as the first country to host the expanded 24 teams version of the African Cup of Nations. And the Pharaohs will strive to make it a joyful competition for their fans here, aiming to win their 8th continental title. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, South Africans have greeted the news with shock. Much to the surprise of many, the hosting rights went to Egypt despite having ready facilities and having hosted the World Cup. CGTN CS Duplessis has more.
The decision has certainly raised eyebrows here in South Africa. Leading up to the announcement, which was brought forward by a day, many football scribes and journalists predicted only one suitable host for the continental showpiece. And after the blast that sadly claimed the lives of tourists near Giza, many felt that due to the political instability and security fears, that the 2010 World Cup hosts would be a shoo-in due to their track record and infrastructure. But based on the developments in Senegal, the 7-time winners have convinced the CAF top brass that the North African country can host a safe and successful tournament. South Africans will be disappointed as their hunger for football is insatiable. But as it's emerged, reports suggest that due to the South African Football Association not getting the backing from the government, which in turn failed to get guarantees from CAF, the governing body could not award the rights to the Rainbow Nation. Now the focus will shift to the national team, who still need to go away to Libya and avoid defeat to make sure they're a part of the 24 teams that will line up at the 32nd edition of the Cup of Nations in June of this year. And Bafana will be aiming to avoid a double disappointment by getting the job done at a neutral venue in March. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, a number of African football legends took part in a football match on Tuesday night in Dakar as part of a new annual event to mark the annual awards ceremony. The maiden CAF Legends match saw several former stars like Mohamed Abou Trika, Marco Lessien, Didier Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, Nwankwo Kanu and Mark Fish return to action. The tie was held in memory of former Senegal captain and coach Jules Bocandé, and pitted continental greats against players who featured in Senegal's 2002 World Cup squad. The history-making Senegal side included players like El Hadji Diouf, Salih Diao and current national team coach Aliou Cissé.
It's a celebration of African football and an opportunity to pay tribute to a great player and a great man, Jules Bocandé and his whole family, so you saw. The FIFA president is here, the CAF president, all the players, all the Ballon d'Or, all here to celebrate one of our brothers, and voila, we're happy to have been here.
The most important thing isn't even score or what they did on the field, but to see them again, their communion with the audience, and to see them play together, having fun and laughing together.
We hope that on Tuesday evening at 10 p.m, Sadio Mane will be an African Ballon d'Or. That is what I pray for, and that is what I would like for him.
Reigning Men's Player of the Year Mohamed Salah goes up against his Liverpool teammate Sadio Mane and 2015 winner Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for the 2018 Men's Player of the Year prize. Salah enjoyed a stellar year with his club, going to the UEFA Champions League final and the World Cup, as did Mane. Aubameyang maintains his familiar status among the top 3 finalists since 2014. In the women's race, the Nigerian duo of Asisat Oshoala and Francisca Odega are up against South African Thembi Kgatlana for the African Women's Player of the Year 2018 award. On to Motorsport, where Qatar's Nasser Al Attiyah led the Dakar Rally after the first time stage through the Peruvian desert